You ever made a mistake and not even realized it was a mistake until way later? Well, believe it or not, the ancient Israelites had this incredibly powerful visual ritual designed for that exact situation. Today, we're going to walk through Leviticus chapter 4, verse by verse, and really unpack the sin offering. So here's our roadmap. We're going to look at 4 very specific situations that this chapter lays out. What happens when a priest messes up, when the whole nation messes up, when a ruler does, and finally, when it's just a regular person. And trust me, you're going to see a really clear pattern start to emerge. All right, first things first, let's get the main idea from verses 1 and 2. A sin offering isn't for when you deliberately go out and rebel against God. No, this is for something else. It's a specific sacrifice for when you break one of God's commands totally by accident, without even meaning to. It's a way to hit the reset button to make things right when you realize you've drifted off course. So we start right at the top with the highest spiritual leader, the anointed priest. And there's a good reason the chapter kicks off here. When a leader makes a mistake, it has a ripple effect on absolutely everyone. Okay, so verse 3 tells us that when the high priest sins, it isn't just a private issue. It actually brings guilt on the entire community. Because that impact is so huge, the sacrifice required is the biggest and best they had, a young, powerful, perfect bull. Now we get to verse 4, the ritual itself. First, just picture the priest leading this powerful animal right to the entrance of the tabernacle. Then comes this crucial moment. He lays his hand firmly on the bull's head. And this isn't some gentle pat, It's a powerful, symbolic act of transferring the full weight of his guilt onto that animal. And then the bull is killed, right there, before the Lord. Now, verses 5 and 6 are where it gets really intense. The priest takes some of the blood and carries it inside the holy tent itself. Imagine this. He dips his finger into the blood and flicks it 7 times, creating a line of 7 crimson dots right there on the pure white curtain that separates the holy place from the most holy place. And the ritual keeps going in verse 7. Picture the priest moving deeper into the tent, over to that small golden altar where incense is always burning. He carefully smears some of the bull's blood onto its 4 horns, sanctifying that place of prayer. Then he walks back outside into the main courtyard and pours out every last drop of the remaining blood at the base of the big bronze altar. In verses 8 through 10, the focus shifts. Now it's about what's offered directly to God. All the richest, most vital internal parts, all the fat, the kidneys, the lobe of the liver, are carefully removed. See, back then, the fat was considered the very best, the most energy-rich part. So these parts are burned on the altar, creating this rising smoke, a sign of surrendering the very best to God. Okay, now for the final, really dramatic step in verses 11 and 12. Everything else, the hide, the meat, the head, the legs, the entire rest of the bull, is carried completely outside the community's camp to a special, clean place. And there, it's burned down to nothing but ash, symbolizing the total and complete removal of that sin. All right, so that's the priest. But what happens when it's not just one person, but the entire nation that unintentionally messes up and nobody even realizes it at first? Verses 13 to 15 explain it. Once this community-wide mistake is discovered, the leaders, the elders, step up and act for everyone. Get this picture in your head. It's not one man, but a whole group of respected elders walking forward. They all lay their hands on the head of another young bull. It's this powerful image of them collectively transferring the nation's guilt. Now, from verse 16 all the way to 21, what's really amazing is that the process is exactly the same as it was for the high priest. The blood goes inside, it's sprinkled 7 times, it's put on the incense altar, the fat is burned, and the rest of the bull is carried outside the camp. This identical pattern shows us that the nation's collective sin is taken just as seriously as the sin of their highest leader. And the good news is, it leads to the same result: forgiveness. Okay, now the pattern shifts just a little. We're moving from the top spiritual leadership to a political or tribal leader, what the text calls a ruler. So according to verses 22 and 23, when a ruler realizes he's sinned by accident, the animal changes. It's not a bull anymore. Instead, he has to bring a male goat. Still perfect, still without any blemish, but it signifies a different level of community impact than the sin of the priest or the whole nation. And here, in verses 24 to 26, we see the biggest difference of all. The blood from the goat does not go inside the tabernacle tent. This is huge. It shows that while the ruler's sin is serious, it hasn't defiled the inner holy space in the same way. This time, the priest takes the blood and applies it only to the horns of that big bronze altar out in the courtyard, where everybody could see it. And finally, the system makes a way for any regular person, just an everyday member of the community, to make things right for an accidental sin. So we're following this pattern of decreasing scale, right? Verses 27 and 28 tell us the offering for a common person is a female goat, again without blemish. You see that subtle step down again? From a male goat for a ruler to a female goat for an individual? It reflects the different levels of public responsibility. And the process, which is laid out in verses 29 through 31, should sound pretty familiar by now. The person lays their hand on the goat's head, and the priest performs the ritual. And just like with the ruler, the blood stays outside, applied to the horns of the main altar. Atonement is made, and they are forgiven. And to make sure this path to forgiveness was open to everyone, verses 32 to 35 give an alternative. If someone brought a female lamb instead of a goat, that was perfectly fine too. The main point is that the procedure, transferring the sin, applying the blood to the outer altar, offering the fat to God, it stays exactly the same, and so does the amazing result. And this chart just lays out the whole chapter's pattern so clearly. You see the logic, right? The higher the spiritual authority of the person who sinned, the priest or the whole nation, the deeper into the heart of the sanctuary that cleansing blood had to go. For civil leaders and individuals, the atonement happened out in the open, at the outer altar. But let's land on this, because it's the most important part. The key phrase, repeated like a drumbeat after every single one of these scenarios, is the outcome. It didn't matter if it was a powerful bull or a humble lamb. Following this specific, visual process led to one guaranteed, grace-filled result, and it shall be forgiven him. So as we wrap this up, it kind of leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If this detailed, serious, and costly process was required for sins people didn't even mean to commit, what does that tell us about the real weight and importance of every single choice we make?